Oh boy, if this video gets any traction at all, this could be a make or break for the channel, couldn't it? Today I want to talk about Life of a Showgirl by Taylor Swift, because I have a lot of thoughts and opinions on the album. I will preface immediately, in case loads of people are watching ready to kill me, I enjoyed the album. Then again, that probably makes more people want to kill me due to how we are at the moment. I guess I'm dead regardless, aren't I? But Taylor Swift obviously needs no introduction. Biggest artist in the world right now, arguably. You know, you could say that The Weeknd is up there, and you know, Bruno Mars, obviously, like if you look at like numbers wise on Spotify and like monthly streams and stuff. But I think in terms of general like impact and just like everything that's happening right now, Taylor Swift is the biggest. And whether you like it or not, that's something you just have to confront and accept, which I think is what is pushing a lot of my thoughts around this album, and I'm sure that's the case for everybody. I feel like a lot of the discussion points around Taylor at the moment on the internet seem to be stemming from the fact that she is who she is. She can make an album that's fine, or she can make an album that's good, but I feel like there'll always be people who are ready to jump on it and criticize it because she should be doing better, and then there's people who love her, who would think that fine is amazing because it's Taylor. I like to think that I'm in the middle of that. Hopefully. I guess everyone likes to think that, though, is the issue with this kind of discussion. And of course, I'm not going to, completely disregard the fact that some discussion around Taylor tends to be over the fact that she is a successful woman and, God forbid, can't be a successful woman no more because woke. This is the third full-length project by Taylor that I've actually listened to, all of them happened in the last 2 years. Prior to that, I wasn't a huge fan of Taylor. I'll be honest with you, I kind of leaned more towards the negative. I didn't hate her music, but the only music I really heard of her had been, TikTok trends in terms of more modern times, and when I was younger, stuff on the radio, which I don't think ever represents an artist very well. The stuff they choose to put on the radio is always like kind of watered down, and obviously stuff like it being censored and things like that. The only stuff that I could really recall hearing from her like a lot was stuff like Shake It Off, which I'm not going to say is a bad song, but I don't think it's amazing by any stretch of the means, and I do think it's a song, because it's not my kind of music, I have been gotten sick of. And with the general discussion around her in terms of people who love her, being that she's one of the most like talented songwriters of the time, Shake It Off doesn't exactly show that to me. But then, when she was, everyone knows the story, Eras Tour, everywhere, okay, I'll listen to Reputation. and I did. I really liked Reputation. I think that that's my favourite project from her, probably as a whole cohesive project. I also listened to Tortured Poets Department in preparation, I think, or after the Grammys, I believe. I can't remember. And I liked it. I enjoyed it. I haven't gone back to it, and I haven't ever had any urge to go back to like any of the songs from that project, but if one comes on and I just don't end up skipping it, I will enjoy the listen. Reputation is I have a lot more wanted to go back to, so that's how I feel about those two projects. And the reason I bring that up is because Life of a Showgirl, with its rollout, if you want to even call it that, and like the hype for it coming out, this, in my head, I had expectations, or at least I had hopes for what this project would be, but there was a little inkling in my head telling me it probably won't be that. And what I mean by that is that with the title, how it is, and the album cover, and Taylor's career being where it is, this had the possibility of being an album that only Taylor, in this current age of her life and era, could make. As stated, she's the biggest artist in the world right now, and whether you love her or hate her, there was a lot of things you can praise her for, that she's generally worked really hard for, and she generally is, deserves credit for. There's also a lot of things that she has been getting a lot of criticism for. Some, a little bit more silly. Others kind of fair and genuine. Do I think she's an evil person? No. But at the end of the day, we don't know her like we don't know any artists. And that amplifies to this incredible level when she is the biggest in the world and is untouchable. And so what I was hoping this album would be, though I had doubts that it would be it because of just a lot of factors, was an album about the title, The Life of a Showgirl. Let's write some songs about where you are in the current stage of your career. Let's respond to some of these criticisms about private jets and about her boyfriend and all this silly stuff. Let's talk about the pressures of performing 3-hour-long concerts all over the world so often. Let's talk about stan culture. Let's make an album that only you could make. And I think that there are elements of that in this album, but they feel like they're left over from a scrapped project, which I don't think happened. That's just the vibe it gives. For example, the final song of the album, The Life of a Showgirl, the title song, featuring Sabrina Carpenter, as much as there I think are negatives to it, I think it underuses Sabrina. I think Sabrina could have been anyone on this album. If anything, I think it should have been someone else. As much as I love Sabrina Carpenter and I love her most recent stuff, and I am slowly getting through her back catalogue, and I really enjoy her music and I really enjoy her as an artist, realistically, for an album of this size and this theme, in theory, I think the only feature shouldn't be a new artist. And she's not a new artist, but it shouldn't be someone who's only been huge in the cultural zeitgeist for the last 3 years. It should be a Beyonce, or it should be a Miley Cyrus, or it should be someone who you can say has had anything resembling the life that Taylor has had. There's not going to be anyone who has had the exact same life and the exact same experiences, but it should be someone who has been performing to a large scale for a long time of her life. And yes, it should be a female artist. I love Sabrina. I think she does fine on this album. I don't think it gives much personality. I don't think it feels like Sabrina. I think you could tell me it was anyone else, I wouldn't pick up on it. The song also has some lines which I find quite funny. You know, the whole itty rhyme scheme of, you know, move to the big city, made some money being pretty and witty. Do you like that? My general point is I like the song, and it's gentle, and it's gentle yet grand, and it seems like this is the final song from a different album. That's what it feels like to me. Because the rest of the album, for the majority of its runtime, could be made by anyone. And that doesn't mean I don't like it, because I do. The first 3 tracks of this album, which tends to be, I think, from what I can tell, what everyone says online, I think are all great. I think The Fate of Ophelia is fun and high energy. Elizabeth Taylor, I think, is similar. It's great. It has that grand, like, dramatic flair to it. Opalite, I do prefer the acoustic version that she's since released, but I do really like Opalite as well. After that, everything else becomes a bit more mixed for me. Father Figure, I get the general gist of what she's going for. Because my dick's bigger line, I'm sure there's people criticize it. I'm not going to criticize it necessarily, but I do think I get what she's going for. But then at the end, when she flips it and she keeps it, I'm like, I don't know. This feels like you think it's a big girl boss move, but it feels a bit lazy. Eldest Daughter, I like the themes of. I'm gonna do the thing that I always do with albums and say that the quieter songs aren't really my thing, even though I enjoy them. And if someone had me listen to them without me skipping them, I would like them, and I do like them. But due to the music I like being more high energy, and that's the stuff I usually pick to listen to, I am not going to say that they're my favourites, because they're not. I still think they're good, I still enjoy them, but I'm not going to say that they're my favourites, so keep that in mind. If I never pick one of your favourite quieter songs from this album and really pick it out for being really great, it's not that I don't think it's good, it's just that personally it's not for me. And that is what kind of the second half of this album ends up being a lot of. Father Figure, like I said, Eldest Daughter. Later in the track list, the songs I like a lot more are Wishlist and Wood and Cancelled. I think, and I am going to say this just as a blanket statement for a lot of this album, there are a lot of lines which I find funny, and that I don't think are as great as she thinks they are, or as, you know, a lot of the fans of the album are giving credit to. I've already mentioned the Dick's Bigger line. I think some of the lines on Cancelled, they're a bit weird, you know, about "we've all stole someone's man." Obviously, the whole weird Charlie XCX thing, Actually Romantic, feels surreal and not real. Do I think that's going to lead anywhere? No, I don't think Charlie's going to respond to that. It does feel like a lot of the issues that she talks about on that album, if it's all about Charlie, are more personal and are things that us as an audience aren't going to know about. So when people are like, "Oh, Charlie gave you credit on the album and now you hate her," I do feel like if we believe what's being said in the record, there's more to it than that we're not going to know. So I'm not picking sides. I do think it's strange to have that on this album, although I guess you could justify its inclusion in some ways. You know, Life of a Showgirl, issues of other artists, that fits more than a song like Wood, for example. which I really enjoy, but it's not you, Taylor. I'm sorry. Again, this is someone coming from listening to like 3 albums. That's very important to keep in mind. I don't know her entire discography, but in terms of what I've heard of her and the general vibe she gives in interviews and just like the general vibe I get from a lot of her music, it does feel like this is her or her label, but I'm hoping her, saying Sabrina's doing really well at the moment. There's a lot of really sexual songs right now, being like quite overtly open about sexuality and all that kind of stuff. That's the big thing. I should do it too. And I'm not against that, but I feel like, again, life of a showgirl, biggest artist in the world, you shouldn't have a song that's chasing a trend. You should be the trendsetter. And that's so much harder said than done. And I'm not going to be angry if this song doesn't set any trends. That's not what I mean. But I do feel like it is a shame that one of the songs on this is so openly trying to do what's popular when you don't need to do that. You are what's popular. Do you, and people will love it. But again, harder said than done. The amount of criticism this woman gets for just existing is insane. I'm sure it's going to break through the skin every now and again. So I understand. I do think that this song does feel like a watered down version of Sabrina's stuff. In terms of like some of the lines she has, almost doing like the MCU thing of like leaving a gap for the audience to go ah and scream at. For example, the hold the key to open my thighs, and like the little bit of silence after that. And I think the fact that the song doesn't start off super sexual and then gets to it and then stays that way, I think feels off as well. Like if the entire song was that, fair enough. But it feels like halfway through they went, let's do this. And again, do I like listening to it? Yes. And that's me with a lot of this album. I like listening to Cancelled, I like listening to Wood, I like listening to Wishlist, I like listening to Opalite, I like listening to Elizabeth Taylor, I like listening to The Fate of Ophelia. With that said, do I think they're all perfect songs and they're all amazingly written? No. There are lines in them which I think are funny, not throughout the entire track, but definitely moments where I kind of go, ooh, that wasn't as good as you think it was, and stuff like that, and like, ooh, this doesn't work for me or whatever. But in terms of the production, the performance, the general feeling of the album, and you know the beats that have been picked, and not the beats is the right word for an album like this, but generally, like, I really like the album. There are songs which I'll skip. I don't think I've listened to Honey since I've listened to the album. I think I've avoided Father Figure just because I remember not really loving that one. And something I think is worth mentioning is that like a thought I had when listening to this was that like I was hoping, like I said, this would be a very unique, only Taylor could make it album. What it ended up being more of was the I'm in Love album, talking about how much she loves her partner, about how it changes, how she's felt about love in the past, and about how everything feels possible now. And I think that's lovely. I'm not gonna be negative about that and dog on that and say that shouldn't be something you write about. I think it should have been in a different album, but I don't think that should be negative. I think that's good that she's in this place. I'm glad that she's feeling comfortable with somebody, and that's what we should all wish for everybody, realistically. Happiness and love. But when I first listened to it, I was like, oh, this just feels a little bit like an album that anyone could make, and just like a generic love album, which I've heard a lot of times before. But my partner brought up a good point, which was that Taylor usually wrote songs about breakups or about relationships that don't go well. So for Taylor, it's refreshing to have a purely positive love is good album, and I am happy in a relationship, which is definitely something to be considered, and I think definitely a good thing, and does make me appreciate this album a bit more. That said, I don't think it should have been called The Life of a Showgirl. I think keep Honey, Wood, Wishlist, Ruin the Friendship, Opalite, and that's your love album. Keep The Fate of Ophelia, Elizabeth Taylor, Father Figure, Actually Romantic, Cancelled, and Life of a Showgirl. That's the Life of a Showgirl album. And even now, I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's a lot more consistent and cohesive. There are so many moments in this album where what I wanted is teasing itself to me and peeking out from the corner and running away. Like in Elizabeth Taylor, where she has a line which is like, "You're only as hot as your last hit, baby." Or I think there's a line that's like something about you can have a number one, but you can never have two. And stuff like that is like, yes, this is what I want. This is what I want. I want you talking about the pressures of being so successful and nothing will ever feel enough. I'm sure something is something you're feeling. This thing of like, I'm doing so well, and yet so many people around me want more. I can have another one album, but I can never have two number one albums at the same time, and stuff like that. Like, that is like, yes, this feels you, this feels real, this feels like what you are feeling right now. I want it, give it to me, feed it to me through a fucking pill. I don't know what I was gonna say there, but it peeks through and it runs away, and it's a shame because I think that if she made that album, it would be really good, and I think it could stand the test of time as a very iconic album. But as this stands, will this stand out in a discography? I don't know. Personally, I do find the online discussions around this album to be very interesting, partly being that the album's been out for about a month at this point, month and a half, which is crazy to think. I thought it was much longer than that. You don't see many people talking about it anymore. When it came out, obviously everybody was talking about it and you know, having their hot takes, but now people don't talk about it anymore. Which when you compare it to like the Tortured Poets Department, complete opposite. People talked about that album forever. That was a very love-hate album, which I feel like is backwards. I feel like this album has more of a sound in terms of like a more of a interesting sound. It has more interesting topics being discussed, and it feels a lot more like there was intent behind it. Where Tortured Poets Department, with it having like the 36 song deluxe, whatever it was, and coming out around the time of the Eras tour and all this, felt a bit more like we need to capitalize off the success right now. It'd be silly not to release an album. Let's see what we've got and release an album just about anything. And it did feel like an anthology project, which is funny that that's what the deluxe was called. And like I said, I enjoyed that project. And something to remember is that I don't know much about Taylor prior to now. So, you know, a lot of the discussion points in the songs and a lot of the stories being told in the songs, I didn't pick up on. I just liked the singing, basically. And it was a nice vibey project. But I feel like that feels like a lot more of a middle-of-the-road, fine album. And this one feels like it tries to do a bit more and tries to do something. Maybe it fails at times, maybe it succeeds at other times. But this feels like what should have been the love or hate, loads of discussion album. And Tortured Poets should have been like, this is fine. But I feel like the discussion around it is completely reversed. And that's what I find interesting personally. Does that mean I'm correct? Obviously not. That's just how I feel about the projects. And obviously, I think it's something to be said that I've repeatedly gone back to Fate of Ophelia, Elizabeth Taylor. When the acoustic version of the album came out, I listened to that immediately. I've talked about this album for quite a while with my partner and people around me. When Tortured Poets came out, listened to it once. I am yet to go back to the deluxe, and I will at some point, but I have no urge to. And I think that is the difference for me in terms of the two projects. Overall, would I recommend this project to listen to if you're not a Taylor fan? Yes, but I think go in with no expectations, which I do think is impossible at this point in her career, which is why it's a shame that this is the project we got. No matter who you are, you know who Taylor Swift is. No matter who you are, you have some kind of preconceived notion about her and her music, whether it's good or whether it's I need to stop using the word groundbreaking in these videos. Whether it's the best thing ever and like she's the best songwriter out there, or you think that she's massively overhyped and that she writes cringe lyrics and you think that, you know, it's stupid. So if you're going to go in and you hate Taylor Swift, this isn't going to change your mind. If you go in and you love her, you're going to love this album. But if you have no opinions, I think this album is going to be something which you enjoy, and that's about it. I don't think it's going to stand out to you, and I don't think you're going to run to return to it. I think, like I said, Fate of Ophelia, Elizabeth Taylor, Opalite, probably going to return to them. I think if you know anything about music, Actually Romantic is going to be interesting to you. I think songs like Cancelled are going to feel a bit cringe, and I think that's about it. That said, I am looking forward to what she does next, because I have this little hope in my little twinkle in my eye that if she's still as successful as she is, maybe she will make an album talking about real stuff. You know, not saying that love isn't real. That sounds so depressing. But if I wanted a love album, I could get a love album from so many artists. But she has a life and experiences and opinions that only she can have. No one has experienced the life that she has or anything close to it who is still alive. Being the biggest artist in the world is something that only a few artists have done and can do and are doing currently. So I really hope that she uses that to give us some iconic, long-lasting projects instead of just, I guess, going song by song and seeing what ends up being created, which is what feels like this project was. It feels like just making some songs and then putting together what the theme of the project is after. Would I be surprised if Life of a Showgirl as a title track was recorded last? No. That's my thoughts. Hopefully I explained them well enough, and didn't come across a bit too rude. Like I said, I really like the album. I'm looking forward to more remixes. As silly as that sounds, like I hope there's a deluxe of some kind. I just wish it was so much more. That's generally my thoughts. Most of the disappointing parts come from that. I wish it was so much more. As much as I say about Ada's cringe lyrics and stuff, I expect that from Taylor, and I don't care. Like, I'm not gonna say it's amazing, and I'm telling people like she's the best songwriter ever, but I don't care if there's some silly cringe lyrics. I listen to Eminem. You should know this. But yeah, that's it. Let me know what you think in the comments if you are willing to put yourself under fire for that. We'll see if I get burned at the stake, and if I do, this might be the last video. Thank you for listening. Go check out the album if you haven't yet. I'm sure it's not as bad as you think it is. And yeah, enjoy. Do a little dance, do a little ditty, be your own showgirl, slay king, boots down. Bye.